Hey guys, it's me, Oliver Saunders, and my boy Adam Churchman. Welcome to the Better Than Yesterday podcast. We are so excited to have you guys on this journey with us. Adam, appreciate you, brother. We came all the way from Canada. We're getting it down in Vegas just to bring you guys this journey. And so today we were going to talk about sobriety. We're going to talk about different levels of sobriety. Do you want to speak on that, my man?
Yeah, I think it's a topic obviously both of us have experience in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when we think about sobriety, it's so wide-ranging. I have a lot of friends who are in recovery of different stages.
Yeah.
I've battled with it myself. I know you have as
I
well.
did as
And
well.
I think without getting pigeonholed in the conversation of addiction and stuff, it does. It is part of our story.
Absolutely.
It is part of where we were, and overcoming it is another example of why we think we're here to share these messages, right?
I agree.
Yeah, sobriety is a big part of my life, but it's not probably the same way that most people look at it.
You know what? I think can you go into that a little bit more, because I know where you're coming from, but everybody else I feel like needs to.
Yeah,
100.
So,
yeah.
So like for me, I struggled when I was younger. Meth was my drug of choice.
Same.
I was into that pretty hard, but I'm not defining myself as an addict. I don't use that terminology. Like I'm not like, hey, I'm Adam, I'm an addict. That's,
Right.
Some people they
Teach his own. Yep.
100%.
Not knocking it.
100%, right?
Right.
Some people, that is really important to help keep them focused on not falling back into their addiction.
Right.
For me, I believe that words have power, so I don't identify myself as an addict at all. It's something that I worked through.
I love that.
But when I say I'm sober or I'm clean, it doesn't mean that I don't still enjoy going out and having drinks and having a night out and whatnot, right? And I know for a lot of people that can be triggering for some people.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's a fair conversation to always think, because I think it puts pressure on you. If you think, hey, if I struggled with drinking, if I struggled with drugs, and the only option left is you can never do it again,
Right.
I think I'd be screwed.
So, you know what? It's funny that you bring that up, because I remember that when I was going through a lot of my sobriety issues and trying to get to the other side, I remember that we would be in meetings and I would be in groups and everything. And like you said, people would say, this is something that you have to do for the rest of your life. Mm. This is for the rest of your life. And I remember thinking, wow, the rest of your life seems like a long time to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To do anything, whether it's something positive, whether it's something negative, that's a long time. So I feel like that can deter somebody, and it can put too much pressure on somebody, and that can make somebody crack. And like you said, to each his own. Makes the world go round. Everybody's different, and that's great. But for me personally, I feel the same way that you did. I think that words have meaning. I think that words have power. So if I continue to identify myself as this and say that I'm this, and then my thought processes are going to start slipping into that and everything, and that's something that I don't want to deal with. I want to stay away from that. And I just couldn't agree with you more, because everybody deals with things differently. Everybody's on a different path. But like you said, I choose positivity. I choose positive words. I choose to do positive things on a daily basis. So that's what sort of helped me stay on this path. What would you say is your definition of sobriety?
Wow. That's a good one.
Yeah, and your definition, not the definition.
I think my definition of sobriety probably comes to along, I haven't even thought about defining it, but probably along the lines of controllable.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Like I have some friends who, you give them a glass of wine, they're doing a ball of Coke later that night. Right? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's for real
Absolutely.
for them.
Absolutely.
I'm not in that place, right? And so for me, it's about the control that I have over it. And I'll be honest, there are times, and I've had the conversations with Eliza where I'm like, I think I've been drinking a little bit too much lately. I got to pull that back a little bit.
And you know what? Let me. I don't mean to cut you off,
No.
but the fact that I don't want to say an addict mind, and like you said, put anything in a box, but the fact that you were able to realize that shows that you were on the right path. I remember back when I used to drink a lot, and like you said, I am sober of hard drugs.
Yes.
I am sober of hard drugs. Yes, I smoke weed every now and then. I do drink. I'm a social drinker when I
Yes.
go out.
Yeah, same.
But like you said, controllable. It's completely different from when I was doing it as a child, not a child, but as a young adult.
Right.
And if I were to ever feel like I were getting back into those old habits, old things, I would realize that and cut it out. But it's crazy because when I used to drink when I was younger, it's a completely different experience, different feeling, different than it is now for me as an adult, as a father, as a successful human, because I know that I have stuff to do.
Right.
The next day. I can't allow whatever's happening tonight to throw me off from taking my son to school, from handling business, from going to work, from taking care of my daughter, from being there for my family, for doing what I have to do. And so I think that controllable is a huge part. What do you think about, the people that would say, oh, that's not a sober life. That's not because you get that backlash. And
100%, especially in that community. And I understand it, right? Because they're literally working to save their lives.
Absolutely.
Right? And so there's a real passion behind that. But what I would say to people who say that's not sober, I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you do you. I'm going to do me.
Amen.
And I'm doing pretty good.
Amen.
So,
Amen. And you know what? And like we said, to each his own. It's like what works for you, what works for me may not work for somebody else. What works for them may not work for us. But the fact that I feel like people have to, you may not like it, but you should respect it.
100.
You know what I'm saying? Just like if I was around somebody and they were like, hey, you know what? I'm having an issue with smoking weed. I would rather you not smoke weed around me. I'm not going to be like, hey, bro, what are you talking about? You can't come around. I'd be like, okay, I respect what you're going through, time and a place.
Right.
That's also an adult thing. You know what I mean?
100%.
And I also think that that's a huge part about sobriety that I don't want to get lost, because I know I've been in the rooms, I've been in the AA rooms, and they're amazing. There's amazing people in there.
Yes.
But I don't want people just to think that you can only do it if you do it this way that's in the book, because there are people that think outside of the box. There are people that things work differently for them. And you don't want to stop somebody being somebody's sobriety. You don't want to stop somebody bettering themselves just because they're not bettering themselves the way that you think.
Right. When you make it so rigid and so tight, you can actually, as great as it can be for the people who respond to it that way, it can be detrimental and preventative from somebody else actually turning their lives around, because they're like, oh, I'm never going to be that.
Right.
And then just, why even try?
Right. And then, you could put yourself in situations where you're staying away from people, or you start hiding things because you feel like you're going to be judged.
Right. Shame.
But at the end of the day, and this is the whole thing about the podcast. As long as you're doing better than yesterday, you're happy with what you're doing, your family is okay with what you're doing, then at the end of the day, just do your thing, because everybody's going to have something to say, whether you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
100%.
Right, you know what I mean?
Did you have a moment in time, like when I first got clean, I definitely spent some time where I didn't do anything.
Right.
And that's because I that was what was best for me at the time. Did you have a moment, or obviously everyone kind of has that rock bottom-ish type of moment where they realize they have to turn their life around.
Yeah.
But did you have a moment where you were like, oh, no, I think I got a handle on this?
I think there was times where I thought that I had a handle on it, and then there was times that where I didn't really have a handle on it, and it's a trip, because my story is sort of different, because for years before I actually was able to kick the bad habits and kick the bad lifestyle and everything that came with it, I was praying and hoping that I would change. You know what I mean? And there was a bunch of changes that I was trying to make. I moved out here to Las Vegas, and everybody thinks it's crazy that you moved to Las Vegas to try to get sober. But you know what I mean? But
if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere.
That's one of the realest things. If you do it here, you can do it anywhere. Plus, you bring you wherever you go. You know what I mean? So so at the end of the day, like you said, if I could get it under control here, then I can get it control anywhere. As you know, as a former person that was into the drugs and everything, I was the king of being able to tear down whatever was around me at that time. You know what I mean? And I was able to go find whatever I need, find negative people that even if my mom, my family tried to put me in positive situations, I would still be able to find.
You're a magnet.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you're a magnet. What you put out is what you get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so while I was putting out that negative energy, while I was putting out bad thoughts, while I was on bad drugs and my mind wasn't right, that's the only things that I was attracting. But as I sort of started to step away, and the more I started to step away, and it took years, you know what I mean, of my mind getting clear, because, I mean, if you were to look at the time that I've been clean, sober, it's a way shorter time than the time that I was getting loaded. You know what I mean? So it's like your mind not only has to like take a break, the smoke has to clear.
Yeah, the
and there
fog
was,
has
and
to lift.
And there was a lot of smoke. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
There was a lot of smoke. So like and then once like the smoke started leaving, it was like, okay, I'm starting to sort of see who I am. I'm starting to see what I like, what I don't like as this new person. You know, it was sort of like a rebirth, because I was in this sort of mindset, this way for so long, you know?
I had to, I don't know if you were the same way, but I even had to struggle to figure out, like, what do I like doing?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do if I'm not doing this?
And you know
getting
what?
in trouble all the time.
And that's one of the biggest parts. That's one of the biggest parts. It was like, what am I going to do on a daily basis? Who am I going to hang out with?
Right.
Who am I going to be?
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy because as the smoke cleared, I started to see things that I do like. I started to realize things that weren't for me anymore. And it sort of just helped me sort of snowball and just sort of build into the person that I am today, you know? And so I just want to, what would you say is the most important thing to keep your sobriety?
Humility. I think for me, because when I think of like, it's really easy for me to become kind of judgmental, and so
for anybody.
Well,
right?
yeah,
Right?
probably.
Be
It's
real.
prob-
Yeah.
I mean, we're
Be
all
real, you know
we're
what I
all
mean?
critics of everything, right?
Right,
And
for sure.
and people bond so easily over negativity
It's crazy.
and gossip and all that kind of stuff. And so for
Absolutely.
me, I think humility is something that, you know. It's funny. I was driving to get my hair cut the other day, and as I was driving, we're out in Vancouver, right? And
Yeah.
there's a huge drug problem in Vancouver.
Yeah,
It's
I've heard, yeah.
really bad. And I just watched some guys crossing the street and realizing how fortunate I feel that that's not me now, and not in like
Yeah.
a judgmental, like looking down at them way,
For sure.
but in a
But you've
humbling
been
way
there.
to be like,
But you've been there.
That was me.
I've been
like I
there.
literally watched the guy cross the street,
Yeah.
and you know, he had some like work boots on,
Yeah.
and he was tired, and he looked like he'd been up for days, and I was like, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
You're walking in the heat.
Yep.
And you're tired,
Yep.
and that sucks. And I
Yeah.
was sitting in my car.
You
air
feel like
conditioned.
everybody's watching you.
Right.
You feel
right.
like you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you feel like
Dirt.
Yeah, you feel dirty.
Yep.
And
Less
and-
worthy.
Yeah, and
Yep.
so for me, I think staying humble and realizing when I see someone who is still struggling at anything in life, really, realistically, right? Like I've been poor, I've been addicted. Like there've been a bunch of different things that I've been that I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
And so for me, remaining humble and realizing like that was me and could easily be me.
It's not far off. And you just have to keep doing, we just have to keep doing the things that we're doing and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I think humility, I think not forgetting where you came from, not forgetting the things that you've gone through, but at the same time, not allowing those things to pull you down, which is like, it's a fine line to walk, because you don't want to get stuck on the past. There's nothing you could do to change the past.
Right.
If you keep dwelling on the past, you're going to miss things in the present and you're going to miss opportunities in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But if you remember the past, like you said, like I see people that are down bad on the street. I see people that are begging for money, and I'm like, I've been there.
Right.
I've been there,
Right.
and I've done that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not judgment on them. It's like, you feel bad, but you also have this level of sympathy that somebody else wouldn't have, because it's like, I've been there before.
Yes.
I've done that before. You know what I mean? I've had those feelings before. And so, I just keep that in the back of my mind. And then I also keep my family, my kids, my girl, just the things that are very important to me in the front of my mind, and what I want to do with life, what I want to give them in life, what I want to leave my family with in life. And that's what helps me stay on the path to doing the right thing. And it's a daily process. It's a daily thing. And we just keep up at it, and we'll keep doing it,
100%. What would you say if somebody, let's be honest, there's people watching us right now.
Absolutely.
If someone was to reach out to you and be like, bro, that hit home.
Yeah.
How do I start? What's the first step? What should I do?
I would just say the first step is probably surrounding yourself with people that you love and taking some time to just step back. Like you said, like you might need a week, you might need a month, you might need a couple days, and it's not that easy because there's a lot of situations where people have to get up and go to work. People have to do things like that. But you have to try to separate yourself and give yourself that time just to allow some of the smoke to clear. Because until the smoke clears, you're not thinking realistically. You're not thinking the right way. You still have that old thought process, the old mentality. So until you sort of get rid of that and start working towards something, it's not going to be different. But I'll just say, take the time to sit back and just realize what's going on, and just try to get as healthy as you can, you know, and a family group, and it doesn't have to be blood, just people that care about you, sharing how you feel on a daily basis, keeping yourself humble, down to earth, and just realizing it's a step-by-step process.
Yeah, you said something a little bit earlier that I resonated really, really deeply with me. You were like, you kind of always knew, like there was like a part in you that you didn't want it forever, right?
Right.
And like, walk me through that mindset, because I think I had a similar mindset. Like I always remember, even with something simple like smoking cigarettes, like I always remember being like, I don't see myself smoking cigarettes for the rest of my life, right? Like, walk me through, how do you get from that vision of yourself to like, I mean, I think most of us think the best for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We want a better life. How do you take that from, thinking into action?
Yeah. You know, it's a trip. I remember sitting around with all the people that I used to get high with and everything like that, and we used to be in this house in the valley, and I just remember being like, "Hey, do you guys plan on doing this the rest of your life?" And they were like, "We haven't even thought about that. Like, we haven't even." And that's sort of when I realized I was just like, "Oh, okay. Like, my thought process is different. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I know that what I'm doing is bad, but there's a lot of things that I can't stop at this time, but I know that I wanted to. So that's just how my mind started rolling. And then I was like, you know what, maybe I need to separate myself. And then I realized, like, when I would go to my mom's house or one of my other friends' house in the valley, I would chill for a couple days. I would start feeling better. I would get a little bit of sleep. I would eat something. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm good. I'm back. And then I go right back. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to distance myself a little bit more.
Yeah, I did the same.
And, and it was just trial and error. Like I said, there was a gang of times, a gang of places that I went to, a bunch of different people that I've talked to try to get to where I am now. And I always say that I thank my son. You know what I mean? It was just the right time that the stars aligned, and it was a beautiful thing. You know.
That's good.
What would you, before we wrap up, I wanted to say, what do you think is the most important thing that you get out of being sober?
The most important thing I get out of being sober, I think, I think healthy relationships would be one for sure. I think never in my life have I had better relationships than I do now.
I agree with that.
I remember times where I'd be surrounded, like I'd be in a group. I sort of rolled with like this small little group of people.
Yeah.
And I remember like, we would fall asleep when we would fall asleep, and we'd all be like laying in the same bed, and like you'd have your chain. No one would take their chains off. No one would take their watches off.
Right. Because you didn't trust it.
Right. The people that you hang out with every day.
Yeah.
And like I had like guys who were selling their girlfriends drugs and making them sleep. And everything was just sketchy, right?
Yep.
And the relationships were just unhealthy.
Even
your best
unpredictable.
friends. Unpredictable, like crazy. Mood swings, drama. And I think healthy relationships have been the best part for me.
I agree.
Getting sober.
I agree. I love it. So guys, that was our second episode on sobriety. Thank you for hanging out with me and Adam. We got way more episodes coming, better than yesterday. It's a wrap, baby.